All right, let's get it. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Appreciate y'all being in the joint. Let's get ready to do this thing, man. It's honorable. King Ray Ray. Let's get it. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Appreciate y'all being in the joint. Let's get ready to do this thing, man. It's honorable. King Ray Ray. Let's get it. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Appreciate y'all being in the joint. Let's get ready to do this thing, man. All right. Appreciate y'all being in the joint, man. Appreciate y'all being in the joint. Salute, salute. Markel, what's good, young homie? MPI, salute, salute. Let's get the people a few minutes to get up in the joint, man, before we go ahead and get it in. I appreciate everybody being in the joint. Been a minute, man. We been doing some things, man. Been you know, taking a little time off, man, to reflect and recover from, grinding so hard for so long, man. You have to take those times, man. Appreciate everybody being in the joint though. Big T. Appreciate the super chat, man. All praises to the most high, man. For sure. All praises do the job all day, man. Y'all put a one in the chat if y'all can hear me loud and clear, man. Put a one in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. Doing something a little different with the mic, man. So y'all put a one in the chat if y'all can hear me loud and clear. Let me know if I need to move this thing up a little bit, turn it up a little bit, turn it down a little bit. If everything good, then we good. Today's topic: a messed up childhood is your parents' fault, but a messed up adulthood, it's on you. We can blame our parents for a lot of things, but what you can't blame them for is your messed up adulthood. Yeah, you may have had some obstacles to overcome because of your childhood, but overcoming those obstacles is your responsibility. Famo, salute. So we're not going to live our lives anymore blaming our childhood, or in essence, blaming our parents and their parenting skills or lack thereof for the things we're dealing with as adults. Because there are people all around you who have overcome more things. And you may say, well, that's them. They are, nope. If they can do it, you can do it. Maybe they're stronger than me. No, maybe they're more focused than you. Maybe the things they went through didn't affect them the way it affected me. Nope, they're just more determined than you to overcome those things and make the life that they want for themselves. And that's where we're going to start this. Now, am I saying there are no issues from your childhood? Yes. Yes, there are issues from your childhood that you're going to have to deal with, recover from, learn from, build from. Yes, all of those things are true. But if you don't do that, you can't look back and say, well, I didn't amount to anything that I wanted to because of my parents. No, I didn't amount to anything that I'm supposed to be doing right now. And all of my goals, dreams, and aspirations, I gave up on them because of my parents. Nope. I became a criminal because of my parent. Nope. I became an addict because of my, nope. At some point, you have to view the world through your adult eyes. And that's what we're going to discuss today. King Abraham, what's good, brother? GC, I see you, man. Salute to you. So let's go ahead and do this, man. Let me turn this volume down on here, man. My bad. My bad. Thought I had already done that. I think I turned it back up though for some strange reason. All right, let's get it, man. Now, First off, let's talk about some of the issues that we do deal with from our childhood. There is the poverty and the trauma associated with that poverty. Let me tell you something, man. Not being able to eat regularly, going to bed hungry, wearing clothes that are ill fitting, shoes that are ill fitting, clothes that have holes in it, all of the things you have to deal with when you're living in poverty, those things are rough. But here's the thing about it: 9 times out of 10, when you're living in poverty, the people around you are impoverished as well. So, whereas someone may have a better pair of shoes, they're still living in the same impoverished environment. So, when you look back on that, you're not the only one who grew up in that environment. You're not the only one who grew up in a broken home. You're not the only one who grew up where you only had access to one parent regularly. The majority of people went through that. And depending on how young you are, the percentage of people who've gone through what you've gone through is even higher. If you're 75, yes, there's a chance that not many people around you were going through that if that's what you went through. But if you're 25, almost everyone did. Many of your peers, many of your counterparts, both male and female, have gone through the same things you've gone through. So, yes, there are some things that we go through. Believe me when I tell you there are. But here's what you got to understand: if it didn't destroy you, it made you a tad bit more indestructible. See, they say whatever didn't kill you made you stronger. I say whatever didn't destroy you made you a tad bit more indestructible. If you made it through something, that's one less thing that can take you out. That's one less thing that can destroy you. That's one less thing that can affect you in a negative manner. That's one less thing you don't know how to deal with. That's one less thing you can't overcome. And I think this is one of the major things that we must remember. Whatever didn't destroy you made you more indestructible. So if you made it through one thing, you're more likely to make it through something else. So if you're an adult now, you shouldn't look at the poverty or whatever you went through as a child and say, "Hey, those things made me impossible, made it impossible for me to succeed." Made it no, those things made it possible for you to succeed, easier for you to succeed, because the thing you're dealing with as an adult pale in comparison to those things you dealt with as a child. Why? There's one reason why. Somebody put it in the chat. Tell me the one reason why it's easier to deal with the things that you're dealing with as an adult than it ever was to deal with the things you dealt with as a child. Even if these things may be worse to the outside world, what's the one reason things as an adult are much easier to deal with than they were as a child? Somebody, anybody, stick that in the chat. There's one reason that things are easier to deal with, and it's because you have control of what you do about it. See, when you're a child living in poverty, there's nothing you can do. You're reliant on the adults around you to do things necessary to change the situation. If you're from a broken home, you're relying on the adults around you to do things to change the situation. If you're dealing with obstacles from your peers, then as a child, you're looking toward adults to help you solve those things, to take control of those situations, to give you the information that you need. But as an adult, you could just wake up and say, "Okay, I'm going to do something different." No one can tell you, "No, you can't do that." No, you can't speak up for yourself. No, you can't quit that job. When you're in poverty, when you're a child, no matter what you're dealing with at the school you're going to, you can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to go to another school." If not even for your parents, we're talking about for zoning reasons. You can't have this address and go to school in that district. But as an adult, nobody tells you, "Okay, well, you got to have this zip code in order to have this job. You got to have this zip code in order to pursue this degree, in order to pursue this career." You have too much control over your decisions as an adult to still view life from a childish perspective where somebody else is responsible for the things you're dealing with, for the things you're going through right now. When you're a child, it's your parents' responsibility to protect you from society. But not only society, it's their job to protect you from yourself. So when you're a child, yes, your parents have to make decisions that you don't want them to make. You think you know more than you know, so it's up to them to protect you from your own terrible decision making, from your own lack of logic, from your own lack of reason, for your own lack of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. But guess what happens when you become an adult? It is your responsibility. It's your responsibility to not put yourself in terrible situations. It is your responsibility not to go into a relationship that you already know isn't going to work because you and the person can't even get along right now. That's your responsibility. It is your responsibility to look at yourself and say, okay, I'm not going to make that decision because I already know what the consequences of that decision is going to be. It's your decision to tell yourself, okay, if I quit this, then it's never going to work. I'm going to have to start over from scratch. I can't just quit, then pick it up and start from where I was. It's your decision to do all of the things that your parents should have done. You have to parent yourself as an adult. And let me tell you one thing you never did. When you were a child, you never blame your grandparents for the way your parents turned out. So now as an adult, you can't blame your parents for the way you've turned out. The same way you can't blame yourself for the way your children turn out if you do the things you're supposed to do. See, what you got to remember is 9 times out of 10, your parents did the best they could. You can't expect much from a single mom who has to get up and go to work and work 16 hours a day and then have time to help you with homework, have time to feed you, have time to feed herself, have time for her own peace of mind in order to keep doing that 16-hour a day grind. You have to understand that there's only so much you can expect from a human being. Consider the circumstances of your life now. Yes, everyone's decisions are their own responsibility as an adult. So, yes, if your mom had multiple children and by multiple men and none of the men were around, okay, that was her decision. But at the same time, the consequences and repercussions of what they're going to be the same way they are as an adult. If you're dealing with the consequences and repercussions of some decision that you made, they're just the consequences and repercussions. They're going to affect your life. They're going to affect your ability to be able to perform in the normal capacities that you need to perform in your life when you're dealing with the fallout from your previous decisions. Yes, my mom made some terrible decisions that affected both her, me, and my brother terribly. But once those decisions were made, the fallout was there. So my expectation for the life that I would have had if my mom and dad had been together, that was a fruitless expectation. It was a useless expectation. It was an illogical expectation. It was the expectation of a child. But as an adult, I know one decision changes everything. The consequences of one decision, if it's the wrong decision, can offset the consequences of 5 decisions if they were good decisions. You got to remember, we're all still learning now. So whereas you may have thought your parents were perfect as a child, they were still learning. There were things they didn't know. Just like there are things you don't know right now. So the whole problem with blaming your parents for what's happening in your adult life, it means that you're not holding them to the same standard that you're holding yourself, or you're not holding yourself to the same standard that you held them. You're not holding yourself to this perfection. The decisions that you make that are bad. If you have a child right now and you and the mother or the father aren't together right now, guess what? You made the same kind of decision that your parent may have made. Now look at the consequences of yours. My bad, homies. God damn. Oh, I got that motherfucker that time. All right. If you're an absent parent, let me ask you this. I can't edit that out either, man. It's live. So that's going to be in the show. If you're an absent parent, then you have to ask yourself, how hard is it for you to be active in your child's life every day? If you're an absent parent and your child doesn't live in the same household with you, how difficult is it for you to be active in that child's life every day? Active the way you should be. It's virtually impossible. So for you to look at situations and blame your dad for not being there, okay, well, accept the fact that your children have the right to blame you for not being there, right? Until they become adults and realize the same way you realize now that maybe there was a reason my dad wasn't there. Maybe there was a good reason that my parents couldn't stay together. Maybe my dad did everything he could, the same way you're doing everything you can right now. Maybe my mom did everything she could, the same way you're doing everything you can right now. Your outlook on everything has to change as an adult. And it can't just be yourself. It can't just be what's going on in your life now. You have to reassess your entire outlook on everything you've ever done, everything you've ever thought, everything you've ever seen. You have to make these adjustments regularly. Because deep down inside, you know that things are different than you thought they were. You know that things are more complicated than you ever thought they were as a child. And here's another thing: you can't be taught certain life lessons by people who have failed those lessons. If you come from a broken home, no, you don't know anything about relationships. You don't know anything about a successful relationship. And the way to make something work is not to look at all of the wrong things that someone else did to make it fail. Okay, you know what not to do to make it fail. You still don't know what to do to make it work. And that goes for men and women both. You have to have seen a successful relationship. You have to have seen two people work together to make a successful family, to have a successful family environment. You have to have seen that. If you haven't seen it, you don't know it. So to expect someone who has failed at something to teach you that, it doesn't make sense. If you look at your parents' relationship and it wasn't successful, whatever the cause is of that, you have to accept that whichever whoever was at fault cannot, you just couldn't learn the right way to do things from them. But the great thing is your parents were never your only source of information. Your parents were never your only source of information. I have an aunt and uncle who've been married 50 years. 50 years. My oldest aunt and uncle have been married 50 years. They were married before I was born. And that's who I always looked at to see how it's supposed to be done, to see how it works. And after all these years, you know what they do? They still walk in the grocery store holding hands. They still show PDAs. I mean, old people PDAs, a little smack on the lips in public. Not PDAs like I would do, you know what I mean? But they still vibe the same way. They still don't go anywhere without checking in with one another. They simply don't. Literally, you can't reach them on their cell phones unless they're not together. Whenever they're not together, it's the only time to use their cell phone. Pre-COVID, they were already living a COVID life. They were already shut up in the house together, man, and wasn't worrying about nobody else. 50 years of that. So your parents weren't your only source of information. So it was your fault for looking at them as your only source of information. It takes a level of maturity to understand that all the information around you is available to you. Everything around you is a resource. And here's the thing: as you mature, and I'm not talking about even as you become an adult, as you mature through your teen years, preteen years, young adult years, you get exposed to more people who are in the position you want to be in. That was probably a teacher who was giving you all the information you needed, but you were too busy trying to be cool and fit in with everybody. And here's the thing. Speaking of that, there's a lot of things your parents did tell you that you were too hard-headed to do. They tell you, don't worry about fitting in. Don't be like everybody else. Let me tell you some of the things your parents told you that you need to be paying attention to. If all of them people jump off that bridge, are you gonna jump too? You kept right on rolling with everybody, doing what everybody was doing. How many times you got in trouble for trying to be cool, for trying to be down? How many times you did something your parents told you not to do and got a bad result out of it? How many times your parents told you, hey, don't mess with that person? Don't be with that girl. Don't be with that boy. I get a bad energy from them. How many times your parents told you that and you didn't listen? You did what you wanted to do because you thought you knew better. So a part of the problem is the things that you did get from your parents, 9 times out of 10, you didn't listen because you thought you knew better. As we all do at a younger age, we think we know better. We think the world has changed. See, we think the game has changed, but it never changes. The game of life never changes. Time changes, but the game of life is still the same. You still have to navigate the obstacles the same way. You still have to take the wisdom, understanding from others who have been through what you're going through, and you have to take it and apply, it, even if it seems like it don't fit. Even if it seems like it don't fit into the modern world is no different. Technology has only changed the way you perceive the world. It has not changed the world. It is another tool and tactic that keeps you away from reality, that widens the gap between your reality and the world's reality. So when you see the people who are in positions you want to be in, flock to those people. Get information from those people. Man, you younger people today, man, if you're in your 20s right now, man, if you're in your teens, 20s, man, you are in a world where there is information available to you, man. Whatever you need, you can just type it into a search bar and get it in image form, video form, all form, news form. You can buy whatever you want to buy, man. Whatever it is you need. You need motivation, man. Type in motivation, then click videos at the top, man, to show you all the motivational videos you need from people who are in a position where you will look at them and say, okay, they've attained a level of success. Let's see what they have to say about motivation. If you need your motivation for someone who's gone through a lot and didn't reach their full potential in life, you can find that too. Whatever you need, you can find it. What I ain't telling you is if you're older than that, you got that from people that were right around you. God didn't put you in a position, man, where you need the information and he just kept it away from you. You just didn't listen. You had better things to do than listen to people who've been where you needed to go, who've seen the things that you wanted to see or needed to see. Here's the thing that you have to remember. Excuses don't work in the real world. Excuses never work in the real world. Excuses didn't work when you were a child, but there was always someone there to protect you from the overall consequences of your decisions. How many people do you know who were just bad when they were young? Mama was a single mom, but put the house up for them. Grandma was the matriarch of the family, rather, and put up the house for them to get them out of jail, even though they were out there living their life where they needed to be in jail. How many people you know who parent hid them out when somebody was looking for them, whether the law or some enemy, some how many people you know who got hid out by someone? How many people you know went out in the world, man, and make terrible decisions, terrible mistakes, and they can always go back home? Probably quite a few. See, here's the thing that you have come to realize because you're the same way. Your parents will never, were never, and don't even want to be who you think they ought to be. They are who they need to be for their lives. They are who they came to be because of their lives, because of their situation, because of their circumstances, because of the conditions of their lives growing up. They are who they came to be. They made the adjustments they had to make to have whatever semblance of a successful adult life they could. So their goal is never to be who you think they ought to be. Your goal is to be who they think you ought to be. Because 9 times out of 10, all the protection that you needed was there. And only in the worst absolute circumstances was the provision that you needed there. Even if you lived in poverty, do you understand there were times where your mama didn't eat so she could feed her kids? Do you understand that she maybe ate off somebody's plate at work so she could feed you? Do you maybe understand that those leftovers that you were tired of was supposed to be her lunch for the next day at work? Do you ever think that your dad, who may have been paying child support, was doing all that extra stuff even though he couldn't afford to? Did you ever think that the child support he paid was based on his salary, was based on his income? And all the extra stuff he did was taking food out of his mouth so he could put food in yours? Was taking clothes off of his back so he could put clothes on yours? Do you ever think that some of those field trips and all that worthless stuff you wanted to do when you were in school, do you ever think that one of your parents had to not eat in order for you to be able to do that? See, the problem is you look at all of the things you wanted that you didn't get, but you don't appreciate the sacrifices that were made. You know how hard it is to work 18 hours straight? I don't care if you sitting in a chair. You know how hard it is to sit in that chair for 18 hours? If you're a security guard that don't do never sit in a guard station, do you know how hard it is to do that for 16 straight hours? Well, why can't you understand how hard it was for your mama to work a double, for your daddy to work a double, for your daddy to work 2 jobs, full-time job, and then come out there and sit at some game so to watch you play a game that you weren't even that good at? Think about it. Because think about some of the things you do right now. How many times have you gone out support your kid in a sport, man, that your kid wasn't even that good at? You knew your kid was is not finna go pro playing that sport. That is not finna be the career for them. But you win anyway. How many times have you paid for a sport, man, that you know your kid wasn't gonna be good at? But you did it because you could. You wanted them to have the experience. You want them to have the experience. Why? Because in your mind, you didn't have the experience. So basically, you want to put your child in a position where they can't succeed in order to fix some type of psychological gap that you have in your brain for not being able to things that you thought you wanted to do. Well, if you thought you wanted to do those things, why you ain't doing them right now? I'll tell you why. Because they weren't meant for you to do. At a certain point, the responsibility of being who you want to be is 100% yours. It's 100% yours. As an adult, you cannot sit around crying and complaining about what you went through as a child and using that as an excuse not to be the best version of yourself. You have all the tools you need. You have all of the things you need from your past. There are so many lessons to learn from your past. The problem is you didn't learn them. You were too busy mad at the teacher. Now you got some catching up to do. Because all these adult years that you blame your past for you not doing the things you need to do, guess what? Those were your years to be responsible for. Now you got to go back and figure out all the things you didn't do. You don't have time to waste blaming somebody else for where you are in this particular time and space in your life. Every day you can make a decision to be better. I don't care if you started from behind the 8 ball. By now, you should be up to the 6 ball and you should be getting ready to shoot the 8 ball after one more ball. You should be ready to run the table. It's your job, not your parents' job, to make sure you turn out to be the adult you're supposed to be. It doesn't make it better if you start off with a head start. Yes, it makes it better if you start off in a situation where, as an adult, you don't have to work odd jobs to make ends meet until you can get to where you need to be. Yes, that helps. But if you didn't have it, guess what? Most people who are successful didn't have it. No matter what you start off with, it takes work ethic, grind, hustle, determination, focus. It takes all of those things in order to be successful. Money doesn't make you successful. You can have money and you go blow right through it. And then what do? The same things you need when you start with no money, you need those things when you start with money. What money does is afford you the luxury of not having to do other things to make money in the meantime. So, yes, it's an easier route, but most of us didn't have that. So, why are we complaining like we should have? You got to stop comparing yourself to people who had things that you didn't have. Your peers are the people who were in the environment you're in. And most times when you look at your adult life, you've exceeded the level of life that they have. The problem is you have psychological issues left from thinking you were supposed to have a certain life when you were a child. I tell you what my granddad told me. The tough road is for the mentally tough people. The easy road is for those who crumble under the pressure. So as tough as your road was, you're still here right now, which means you had the mental capacity, you had the physical endurance, and you had the spiritual astuteness to make it through. So there's nothing you should be looking at back on the past with regret. Let me tell y'all something. There are 3 R's. Here are the 3 R's that will forever be toxic to your present and by default, your future, because your future is built on your present. Here are the 3 R's. Regret, remorse, and resentment. I say again, regret, remorse, and resentment. Those are the 3 R's that will forever, ever be toxic to your present and by default, your future, because they will keep you tied to your past in a way that's so negative, that's so counterproductive that you won't ever be able to take the rules and tools and jewels that you learned in the past and use them now because you view the past from such a toxic perspective. You can never get positive things from the past if your mindset is my past was so negative that I just want to forget about it. Everything you need to move forward in life is based on every experience that you have. So clear your mind from the clutter of viewing your past as something that destroy your life. If you're still here, how is your life destroyed if you're still here? Help me understand the mindset of having your life destroyed when you're still here right now. It didn't destroy you. It made you more indestructible. That's what it did. So at this point, what you have to do is find your spiritual connection to the Most High, the God of Israel, and allow it to be the foundation of your experiences in this life moving forward. Don't listen to the people who tell you, don't do that, don't worry about that. It's the thing that's going to make you whole and give you the wisdom, understanding, knowledge, the spiritual capacity, the mental capacity to get rid of that emotional connection to your past and view your past from a logical perspective. What gems can I go back and glean from the jewelry store that is my past? Your past is the biggest jewelry store you'll ever have because your future, you don't know what it's going to be, and the present is almost gone. It's the biggest jewelry store in your life. Go back, glean those gems from your past, man. They sit back there waiting for you to polish them up. Your jewelry case could be a jewelry safe if you glean the gems from your life. Some of the lessons are hard learned, but they're still lessons learned. The harder the lesson, the higher the clarity of the diamond. You did? So go back to your past, man. Get those VVS diamonds from back there. And remember, at a certain point, the responsibility of being who you want to be and being in the situation you want to be in is 100% yours. And that time for you is now. It is now. Archer Engineer, my brother, I appreciate the $50 sponsorship of the show. Appreciate you, man. Salute to you, my brothers. Take this wisdom, man, pass it along to those that you know in your life who truly need it. Salute to Famo, GC, all the brothers in the building, man. If you want to be a part of this spiritually astute chat, go to the King Ray Ray main channel page. Next to the subscribe button, you'll see join. Click that join button, pick your tier. Come on in, man. Come do it, man. It'll put you where you need to be. So I will see y'all, man, next time we're on. And next time I feel like doing a King Ray Ray video. In the meantime, y'all put God first and keep grinding and growing, my brothers. Peace.